Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Let's see, we got the room getting started here. Good to see everybody. All right, it's for me the early AM session that we run each week, where we try to answer any questions you might have on the budget process, the budget itself, or any of that. And of course, the full text of the budget is still on its way out. Lawrence and I have both been working diligently with the committee to get approval to release the budget. I think we are closer than ever before, and at this point, I think we're aiming to get something in everyone's hands this week, so that people have the opportunity to review this and begin to let's form it together. That's the most important thing I think everybody needs to know, is that nothing in this budget is set in stone until after the DREPs have reviewed it and the DREPs have spoken to their communities. So we talk, 6 epochs minimum while we go through the net change limit, although we think the net change limit may not be released till next week, because there was a request from the ISC this week to review with a couple of other committees the net change limit itself to make sure that we're meeting the full community's needs. So, by way of updates, that's primarily what I have. Is that I think everybody heard in the AMA from Charles, it was about 83 pages. 30 or 35 pages of that budget that Charles read are actually the information on what it means to be an administrator according to Intersect, right? So Intersect has put forward, this is what we will do to be an administrator. These are all the rules we'll follow. This is what we'll hold ourselves to account with, and this is how you can hold us to account. So that's about 35 pages. So that really leaves roughly 10 pages per budget, of being 5 budgets. So that's the actual reality of the 80 some page budget. Is most of it is, what does it mean to be an administrator? What does it mean for you to hold Intersect to account for the work that it would do in the process? So, but I am happy to take any questions. We've got a relatively full room today, so I do ask that you please raise your hand if you have a question today, and I will be more than happy to start answering them. So, welcome everybody.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah. So, when the budget is released, is there a schedule, any session or AMAs with the different budget buckets, and we can ask them directly, what is this and what is this?
Yes, absolutely. We will invite. Actually, what we're going to do is, for as many sessions as possible, I'm going to invite all of them, so that you don't have to pick one particular session for one particular bucket. But I'm going to try to have representatives from each bucket, each session, if at all possible.
Awesome. That's great. That's great.
Just said we already have scheduled some sessions in February, so probably we will use these. I did not schedule yet once we agree on a weekend, Lloyd, but I will also add these on the weekend, so we can cover all areas, and all time zones.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Simo. Yeah, so we will do 2 weekend sessions in February as well. So we are, trying to be, and I've already got Cardano over coffee appearances scheduled. I'm working on scheduling with other, the other influencers in the space. So this information is going to get pushed far and wide. We're going to get it to as many people as we can, and I'll attend as many X spaces as I can, just to answer any questions that come up. So, but yes, thank you, Ken. That's a great question. And yes, like I know Tex is here right now, and we typically do have representatives show up from at least 1 or 2 committees at every meeting. So we will continue to make sure, and we send them the invitations as well, so they will always be able to come and answer your questions directly. Hey, John, how are you?
Hey, Lloyd, really good to see you again.
Yes, sir.
On the timeline, it says that the net change limit info action is released at the start of February, but it's not out yet, right? Sorry.
That's right. So the Intersect Steering Committee raised an issue at their meeting on Monday. We were trying to get it approved and released on Monday, and they raised an issue that they wanted to reconsider doing it as a percentage of the change of the Treasury and a couple of other options. In fairness, we've already been through those things, but when it came the moment for the rubber to hit the road, they wanted to go back and have one more discussion. So we kind of like, okay, but just one more, right?
Okay.
So
What
we're having one more discussion this week over the net change limit, and then if we can get over the line, it'll be next week.
and can you say what the actual figures they're bouncing between are? Or you
Well,
don't?
we do know that the recommendation from the Treasury folks is 350 million ADA for a year. That's what the recommendation still is. It hasn't changed. There are just some members of ISC that Intersect Steering Committee is the chair of every committee plus 5 elected community members, right? So that group just expressed that they wanted to have one more week to discuss whether they should go to a percentage of the Treasury rather than that. But I don't have a percentage number. It's not it's not what the Treasury folks recommended. They recommend a hard number. So
Okay. And then I'm switching between it, the whole timeline with the blue bars, going through the length of time. Presumably those timelines are all the maximum. And if everybody votes early, those things get ratified when they hit the limit, and then everything can be brought sooner. Yeah.
there are 2 exceptions in that. So the way info actions work, they must run their course for 6 weeks. There's no option.
Okay.
So both the net change limit is an info action, and then the budget proposals themselves are
Info
are
actions.
info actions. So those 2 require 6 epochs, 30 days each, no matter what. If we don't pass one, then we still have to wait another 30 days to pass one. See what I'm saying? No matter what.
Yeah.
So it's pretty critical that we get it right. So I do agree with the ISC to take that last look was probably important to make sure that we're truly satisfied with those numbers, or that they come up with a different thing that they feel will be more, they'll be more comfortable passing to the community. So that is fine.
But
And then
the withdrawal actions can happen sooner.
withdrawal actions can happen sooner. Withdrawal actions are just like the Constitution, for instance. The Constitution action that's on right now, if this week enough DREPs vote yes, Constitution passes, we could move forward. Like, we have a Constitution, that's it. As it's the epoch boundary after you reach the percentage that you need to reach, right? So if we hit 75% this week, we're done. We've got a Constitution. That's it. Withdrawal actions are exactly the same. So withdrawal actions can happen the first epoch.
And is there a plan to, I think that message, once the info actions are done, that message should be really put out there that we can get things going faster if people,
We
don't
have
wait till the last minute.
That's right. And we have this week, we did, that information was shared this week. There was actually some concern from some folks that were like, that means you could go too fast. We couldn't change our mind. No, that's right. That is the way it is. And it's the way it's been since SIP 1694. It's built in that way. The earliest discussions we had on this were we needed the flexibility, both of enough time for everybody to understand that if this was happening, get noticed and act, but also that if we wanted to act faster as a community, like to fix a security hole, or what we could, we had that flexibility to go both ways. And so that's why it's built the way it is. And that was recently, let's see, it was Mike Hornan had done a graphic on this a while back, and that got kind of resurfaced and shared again. Adam Rush put out a bunch of information this week, and then Intersect as a whole put out some more information this week on that. So we are trying to educate folks that is the way that the system's built. It's literally designed exactly that way.
Yeah, perfect. Well, that makes a lot of sense to me. So, all right. Thanks.
Thank you. Hey, Logan, how are you?
Hey Lloyd, how's it going?
Good.
Early slot for me too today. But yeah, can you just, so if the is the net change limit, is it going to be voted to be less than 350 million? I mean, I've heard different things from different people. And then what is the budget amount that Intersect is going for? And then can you
Sure.
just like list out the different buckets within that budget? I know it's each committee, but I just want to
Sure.
be certain there.
Yeah, no problem. So okay, so the net change limit that as far as the treasurers are concerned, the net change limit should be 350 million ADA, which is roughly, it's like slightly more than what comes into the treasury. It is expected to come in the treasury in 2025, and over time that could end, if we continue to increase transaction volume, that could actually be less than what's going into the treasury, over a period of a year. So that's where that number is. That's why it's there. That's the thought on that one. Intersect's budget is around 200 million ADA. And that leaves room, and that is every time, no matter what. Intersect is trying to leave lots of room in the budget for other things that have to be built that are going to not come through Intersect but go and be surfaced by the community. So no, we never want to spend the whole amount of whatever it is that the net change limit is. The whole point of this is multiple budgets, living within our means, and doing the best we can with whatever value the Treasury has available. Your third part of your question was the buckets. The buckets are the same that they've been the whole time. So those have not changed and will not change for 2025. They are core, which is core node development and things related to the core of Cardano. There's research, which is the research items that were primarily performed by IO up to this point, but that we're opening to a broader part of the community. The innovation bucket, which includes things like Project Catalyst plus community grants from Intersect to do all kinds of community grant work. The governance bucket, which is the civics committees work that they do, and work to do reimbursement and or any kind of remuneration for DREPs for the CC, that kind of thing. So it's the work of getting the government built and running. And the fifth and final bucket is the outreach bucket, that's the subject of the formation of new committees and that events council and all this other stuff that's kind of trying to form up and try to figure out how to market Cardano effectively, both internally to its members with meetings and meetups, and externally to the wider community and the wider world.
Cool. Thank you. So it seems to me that each bucket doesn't align perfectly with kind of a committee. So how is that process being thought about of, okay, there's these 5 different buckets. There's, I don't know, maybe there's even 6 committees, maybe more. So how does it go from, okay, or like who's making the decisions of the committees obviously have a lot of say in that. But yeah, I'm just wondering more about the process of how you get from buckets to actual allocations, and primarily asking from the perspective of, a project that maybe wants to apply for an RFP or help build out some core infrastructure, that type of stuff.
Absolutely. So and so basically what's happened is that the buckets are, the original vision was that the buckets would be there and that everyone should apply to take a portion of the bucket, and they could administer a portion of the bucket. Right. And so what has happened is that, some of the core stuff is actually in OSC, and some of the core stuff is actually in TSC. OSC needs money to make sure that we're doing certain things the right way. As from an open source perspective, they also need money to bring up new developers into and train new developers into our core. So they're taking on that part of the channel. But then the TSC is handling the actual tendering portion of getting the stuff that we expect to get done. So they'll have their sort of the rubber meets the road, whereas open source is more like, how do we prepare the next generation? But they both fall into the core bucket. Marketing, the growth and marketing bucket will include the growth and marketing committee that's being formed up. which will have working groups underneath it for events and digital marketing and things like that. And then it also includes the membership and community committee because they handle hubs and all that. So it breaks down based on function. And the RFPs, as far as getting into the RFPs, it's actually going to be all of the RFPs are going to be on the Intersect website. So you're going to have to go to one place and look at the RFPs. Now, over time, does that mean that that everybody has to use Intersect? Nope. If another administrator makes a bucket and gets approved, and they have a different approach for where you go to get their RFPs, well, that's how that one would work, and you just have to follow in their case. But for now, everything that's in Intersect, and really as long as as the things that are in Intersect are available, they'll be available on the Intersect website, and that's where you would get your response.
Awesome. Thank you. That's very
Thanks,
helpful.
Logan.
And then
Appreciate that.
the committees there's like the marketing one that's popping up, membership and community, TSC, OSC. What am I missing?
Civics and gosh, is there anything else?
Steering committee.
What's that?
Technical steering committee.
Yeah, TSC, technical steering, open source, civics, membership and community, growth and marketing. There you go.
That's it. So there's 5.
No, 7.
So there's 7 committees total. So because you have budget is a committee, but the only work budget's going to put out for RFP is going to be audits. Like we don't get in the business of making requests for money to do anything other than to manage the budget. Right. So it's just not like there won't be anything in there unless you are an auditing firm or a tax firm or something like that. That's the only kind of work that the budget committee itself will put out.
Mhm.
It's kind of important that we don't do that part, right? It's kind of really important that we don't do that part, except for stuff that's very specific to the budget itself, because we're too close to the money to have that that freedom. So we shackle that committee down pretty good, so they can't do that.
Cool. Yeah, the other one we were missing was the ISC, I think.
ISC,
But
and ISC is made up of the heads of every single committee plus 5 other elected community members plus the staff at Intersect, the senior executive staff at Intersect.
awesome. And then last question for me, sorry, is you
Yeah.
expect just the more information on each bucket and that being broken down to be released by the end of the week?
Yeah, we're doing our absolute best. I want it out today. I wanted it out 2 weeks ago. Let's just get it out there so people can read it, start chewing on it. That's how I've been this whole time. So I'm just trying to I'm chomping at the bit. I'm ready to discuss it in the public. I'm ready to have the conversations. We need to do it. I'm not going to quit until we get it. So that's just my position right now is that I will continue. And Lawrence is the same way. He wants it out in the public. So he and I have been just spending our time just getting everybody else comfortable enough with releasing it so that we can get it out. That's where we're at, and we will make that happen this week if humanly possible.
Awesome. Thanks, Lloyd.
Thanks, Logan. All right, I think Ken, you had your hand up next, then John, then Juan.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be very important to communicate that net change limit versus the actual budget is not the same, because I think many people are of the opinion, okay, 350, okay, that's what you're going to spend, but that is actually not true.
That's right.
Yeah. And I also think it's also important to communicate that when the different buckets gets approved eventually, if there is like a surplus or that we will distribute, because if I understand correctly, that if one bucket is in surplus, then we can distribute to another one that perhaps had overspending.
Yep. So it is possible with DREP approval that we could move money from one bucket to another. It's absolutely possible. That's one of those things we could do at the quarterly meetings or with an info action. So both of those are possible. And it just depends, on what the needs are and the urgency. But we can definitely do that. The other thing with surplus at the end of the year, we can simply return funds to the Treasury. There's a simple transaction that returns funds to the Treasury. So that's going to be laid out. All of that's laid out in the budget proposal itself. I was talking at the very beginning about the fact that we've got 30 odd pages at the beginning of the document that are not a budget, but actually how Intersect will act as an administrator. So that 30 odd pages includes, what the intents are with the funds, because first of all, we take it. Intersect has an admin fee, which it looks like we're trying to replace that 5%. That's the 5% seems unpopular. So it's instead of that, it's just straight. Here's what it costs to run Intersect each year to do all of this work. Fine, right? Put that out there, and if the DREPs accept that, great, because there's cost of operations of Intersect, right? So instead of charging it back and making 5%, doing all that, like it's complicated, just forget it. Just make a line item, be done with it, right? So that's what it costs to run Intersect. It's cheaper than a lot of other things, by the way, which is really cool. So, I'm really proud of the fact that it's actually not that, compared to other stuff in the ecosystem by head count, it's actually very, very reasonable. And so that's a really cool thing. And so that's something I think we should be proud of and say, hey, this is it. Our costs are low, and that's a good thing. We're going to keep it that way. And then the money that's left over, well, yeah, just the DREPs, you have a choice. You can say, do this other thing with the money, or send the money back to the Treasury. Which one do you prefer? And you tell us, and we do what you tell us, because ultimately we want to be an administrator of the budget for a long time. So what do? If you want to be an administrator for the budget for a long time, you listen to the DREPs and do what the DREPs want you to do. I can't really comment on that, Nana, because I don't have direct numbers on Catalyst operations. I think that's something that the community will have to, have that conversation with Chris and Danny to see where their operations lie. But yes, our operations are very low compared to even industry standards. It's very nice to see how low we've kept the operating costs in 24. Speaking of that, we will have 24's numbers out very soon here. They're wrapping up December. As soon as December's wrapped up, the numbers are going out, and we're going on chain with Intersect's annual numbers from 24. So no hesitation, no delay. As soon as it's available, it's going out. And the other cool thing with that is we're doing that same thing with the audit process. The audit process will actually come through community members, not through Intersect. So it will immediately go to community and then go to Intersect to the board. So no nothing. Full transparency. Audit results come in. Here they are. Community has them. And then they go to the Intersect board. So we're really working on that part of it. That where transparency actually really matters, where it really needs to hit the road. That's where we're making sure it does. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Just one side note. So I was in this Mika meeting here in Norway 2 days, and I stumbled up on Stig at NBX. And we had this discussion regarding transparency. And I don't know if you have any thoughts about this, but it is possible to hold USDM, for example, and be MiCA compliant in Europe if we collaborate with NBX. And they have a rock solid, fiat on-off ramp, at least with 5 currencies. So, and in this way, we can have auditable fiat balance and have the USDM balance for each bucket transparent all time, and you can actually track it live. I just want to put that into the table.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that. What I need to do for that is I need to put you in touch with Lawrence. Lawrence would have to bring that to the Treasury Working Group, because that is something that they have to discuss and and determine. But I appreciate that, and I will make sure that that gets past Lawrence, and that you can have that conversation with him directly.
Cool. You guys have a big brain, so you probably have thought of something cool anyway. But just maybe there's an input that can be used to something.
Exactly. Like we're always looking for the input, so it won't hurt to make sure Lawrence is aware of that. He may be already, but even if he's not, it's great to pass it on. So thank you for that, Ken. Appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. So next up we had John Gibson.
Hey, yeah, hi, thanks. You have a couple of questions, but they're all sort of just related to maybe like future problems. Like Charles always said that there'll be multiple MBOs in the future and there's multiple opportunities for them to put in their own budgets. And I'm sure you've spoken on this loads of times. Yeah, I might have even heard it before and forgotten. But what happens if multiple budgets come in that add up to more than the net change and they get approved, or do they get deemed unconstitutional if they add up to a greater total? Or
Yeah, it's unconstitutional. Exactly. It's unconstitutional if they add up to a greater total. So what happens is that the CC, if the budgets are coming out at the same time, I've said this to the ICC, they were like, well, what do we do? I'm like, well, you actually kick them all back. You say you can't be constitutional together, so you go figure it out and come back to us whenever you are, and you kick all the budgets back. So this is the only way to avoid a race condition, right? Where everybody's rushing to put a budget in for the full amount. That's the worst case scenario here, and we don't want that to happen. So you guys have great budgets, go figure it out amongst yourselves. And when you come, with a set of budgets that fit within the net change limit, then we can prove them constitutional. That's it.
But well, we've got our budgets that we're going in next month. They don't add up to the net change limit.
That's right. So there's room.
So somebody in June could put in one that takes up a lot of it, and then somebody could put in another in September that goes over it, and it's just the last one in gets
if they wait till September, if they wait till September to put a budget in for 2025, then there's going to be less money left at the end of 2025 anyway, right? That it is what it is. That's actually very normal in budgets and budget processes, right? Like at that point, we've got that there's just less left to spend, so it's perfectly okay if somebody waits that long to put a budget in.
And so when it comes to wanting to put in a budget for 2026, is there a date where all those budgets will be gathered together by the ISC, deemed to be constitutional because they all add up to less, and then they all go through together? Or like
our intention is to have the 2026 budget process done end of third quarter, beginning of fourth quarter 2025. So we intend to have our budget for 2026 out and done at near the end of 25. So this is what it is. We'll actually start the bucket allocation process. We're going to try to start that in June, maybe July, because I think I want Christmas in June, since Lawrence and I spent our entire Christmas working on the budget. We're gonna try to have Christmas in June, and then maybe start the allocation in July.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Okay, all right. I'll think about that.
All right, John, thanks.
All right. Oh, here's a quick separate question.
Okay.
All the committees that are sitting at the moment, I've gone on the Intersect knowledge base, and I can't see any list of attendance in all the different meetings. I can see some minutes, but is that all that there is?
For now, I believe that's all that there is. By the way, we've had this conversation with a couple of people, and I love the idea of doing meeting attendance. And one of the things we've talked about is actually allowing for self-minting of an NFT for attending meetings, because that would actually allow us to have an on-chain record of who's attending the meetings.
Right.
So
Right.
it's not it's not set in stone thing, but it's something we've had discussions on as a possibility. Lawrence,
Okay.
are you raising your hand to be recognized, or?
Can you hear me?
I hear you fine. Yes.
Sorry, cool. Sorry, I was trying to find the raise the hand. It's just on that. So, it is something I've raised in the secretarial meetings, that the secretaries should at all times be recording attendance, be they voting members as well as observers, SMEs, etc. So they should be declaring that in their meetings, and it's something that has been picked up, and we're going back just educating individuals to make sure that they record that. So that has been picked up. With regards to the budget, as we know, we have collated a full year's budget information from each of the committees, and what we're working through with them now is we know that we won't receive the money till June. So either we don't plan to spend the money between now and June, or we know that the work won't start till June. So consequently, that becomes a 6-month ask rather than a 12 months. We're doing some analysis at the moment on a lot of the committees to understand how we're truly going to spend the money. But we have a yearly sum. So in our finance sheet, it's going to be released. So you'll see all the details soon, I hope. If not, if you're in one of the committees, you should have seen it already, because it is your information just in our sheet. We are noting the full year 2026 budget already. So that is just a forecast, though. So we're forecasting already for what we believe to be the future years to be. And as Lloyd rightly said, we are working now to start the process off. So we planned by the end of the year to be releasing the 2026 budget well in advance, because we can't afford to have things stop working. So I need to be signing contracts, going out for proposals to members and the community in October for contracts that want to start in January. So we need to have that underway.
Thanks, Lawrence. And Ona, thank you for your patience. You've had your hand up for a while, so go ahead, Ona.
Yeah, so sorry, I joined the meeting a little late. So, okay, I was asking how many buckets rather? How many buckets?
Okay. Sure, no problem. There are 5 buckets. It's core, which is core infrastructure and the support of the development of the node. There is research, which is the research of the various next steps for Cardano's tooling. There is innovation, which is community grants for things like Project Catalyst, but also for the community grants that come through Intersect. There is the outreach bucket, which is things like growth and marketing, which would include hubs from Intersect, but it would also include digital marketing for Cardano and events for Cardano, and Cardano attending other events for other parts of the ecosystem beyond Cardano. And the last bucket is governance, which supports the business of the Constitutional Committee. It would make recommendations for how DREP's compensation should work, as well as CC compensation would work, and handle the development of governance-specific tools, like what's the future of GovTool? What do we do with it now that it's in Intersect, and we have to make it work for us? What are we gonna, or do we do something else like that? The governance tools that we all need to do our governance work. So that's under the governance bucket.
Okay, that's clear. You've answered my second question. I wanted to know which bucket Project Catalyst falls into. That's innovation. Okay.
Yes.
So the other thing is, you talked about Intersect being the budget administrator.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fine. And then the other issue. Okay, go ahead.
That language comes from the Constitution, right? So the new Constitution that we have, it has the concept of a budget administrator that has to be assigned for each for each budget that's presented. So what Intersect is saying is this is how Intersect will act as an administrator in order to secure and support the distribution of the funds that come from the Treasury withdrawal. So Intersect is stating up front, this is how we'll act, and this is how you can hold us to account.
So the question is, other MBOs can come up with budgets at any point in time.
That is true. That's absolutely a true statement. It is, the limitation is the net change limit. If another budget wants to present itself, it has to present itself within the same net change limit that the DREPs all agree to. So that will, if possible, we'll have that out by next week. There was a delay this week from wanting to do further review on it, but hopefully we can actually have that out next week, so we can begin voting on the net change limit, so we can set that so that we have the information that we need to actually pursue the budget.
Well, I'm thinking that will bring in, allow room for some surprises and all that. So why don't we have like a cutoff time or something? If you intend to present a budget, you give an advance notice. somebody can just wake up and send in a budget anytime in the year. Can't we
Just
have like a
remember,
cut-off time? Yeah.
yeah, remember that the D reps are responsible for approving or not approving, and if they don't vote yes, it's not approved anyway. So this is something that, if a budget just drops suddenly, surprisingly, and no one knows it, I don't see D reps rushing to quickly go vote yes on it. That's one part of it, and the other part of it is that yes, we're going to put our budget as Intersect, speaking as Intersect for a moment here, we'll put the budget out, as Lawrence was just saying, early enough in 2025 that you'll have a really good understanding of where we're at for 26, and that if someone does have an additional budget that they feel is important, they'll have time to go and socialize with the D reps to actually bring that budget forward, which I think is going to be an important part. Like, that's what we have to do. We're socializing the budget process right now with all of you guys, because we know we have to do that to get a budget passed, and we think that's pretty much going to be the case of anybody. I don't think there'll be any like surprise where it's like, oh, surprise, here's a new budget, you guys go vote for it, and people say yes to that. I wouldn't. I'm a D rep. There's no way I'm going to vote yes on a budget that no one's socialized with me. In fact, I'm going to go vote no. I'm going to go do not pass this.
That makes sense. Okay. Thanks anyway. Yeah.
Thank you, Owen. I appreciate it. Lawrence, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to kind of add to that as well. So Intersect is the facilitators of the members and communities' budgets. That's our goal. So we facilitate our budgets through our committees. So our committees are the people that are accountable for the budgets. We, facilitate. So Intersect is the support and facilitation for what the community and our membership believes that they would like to do. So that's why our budget is, I guess, larger at this moment in time. If there is another MBO, and we have talked about having some other MBOs coming through, that's fine. Now, I think as we evolve, let's be honest, we're the first, and we'll be the first budget, and you've just got the constitution going through. So there's still lots of first in this world. So we do just need to be mindful that there may be, I think what we're creating, and I've seen this in a few other, is this coming in the banking world, which is budgets must be in by this period. So you've got every single budget for the whole year. So they drive it, end of Christmas, you have to be in by, you rest over Christmas, and you argue the toss over January type thing. And we have to build that cycle, and we have to communicate to the D reps and the CC members and the groups to understand how they would like to put it with the community. Would they like to have everyone have it in a yearly? Would they like to have more broken down throughout the year? And that's a good question to be asking. There's pros and cons with both models and challenges along with them as well. I do think that we need to evolve and gain more insights from the D reps of what they're thinking about.
Awesome. Thank you, Lawrence. All right, let's see. We got Laurentine. Go ahead, Laurentine.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to know under which buckets enterprise members for the enterprise members of Intersect, because we want to understand the grant allocation. That will help us understand what kind of funding we can expect.
So the enterprise members, obviously same as any normal member, have access to the committees for any funding. So the grants may, depending on which type of grant you're after. So the MCC is typically, they do have some grants going through. That's where Catalyst goes through, for example. So that would come out of our MCC committee. They're more technical related grants being discussed through things like the TSC as well. So they are proposing some grants. So you'll be able to see as soon as the budget is released for review, how much they're asking and what categories, etc.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Kit.
Hi, Lloyd. Hi, Lawrence.
Hey, Kit.
I want to ask a question about, the budget. What is the timeline of the budget? The buckets. I know the buckets are going to be submitted individually for the DREPS votes, right? So what's the timeline?
So we was planning to get the net change limit out yesterday, so that's been delayed a little bit, mainly for more space for the Constitution, to be fair. So we know the Constitution is doing really well, but I think, again, there's pros and cons with the Constitution needs to be in place. That depicts that a net change limit must be there, and then that budget can happen. So as soon as I guess it's the Civics Committee, which we're looking for the nod from. Once they say that it's to the point where we can progress with a positive net change limit, then we would absolutely do that. So that's going to come from the civics. We'll then get the next change limit out for people to review and discuss, etc. With the new proposal forum actually in the Gov tool, which was released last week, I know Lloyd and I did talk about, well, maybe we should raise it now for people to have visibility of it. And that's, it's just tooling coming out with new features very quickly. We wasn't aware of it, so there's an option there that it may come up, but not for voting, to be clear, only for visibility. And then there's 6 weeks, I believe, Lloyd, correct me on that duration. Is it
six epochs, 30 days, 6 epochs. So 30 days for the info actions that they have to go through. They cannot be expired early, unlike all the other actions. Info actions require the full 6 epochs. So once we've put the net change on, even if we get approval early, we'll still have to wait out the 6 epochs, and then we can put the budget actions, each of them separately. Each bucket will have an action that would be presented, and those also, because they're info actions, will also have the full 30 days, the full 6 epochs of time that they have to go through. And then from that, we can do the treasury withdrawals, and the treasury withdrawals could go as quickly as 1 epoch if they get quick approval.
Yeah. How many buckets do we have now? I know there has been a lot of restructuring. How many do we have now?
5 always. Yeah, we're not changing from the 5 buckets. That's what we had from the earliest days of this. That everything.
Include the investment one, Lloyd, or did we bin that? I know. Or did we
So that was
we?
always the 6th bucket that we had proposed, was the investment bucket, and of course, obviously, Charles has talked about that recently, and he put that post out there. It got 84% approval on his post. So the community obviously wants that.
To it.
Okay.
Right.
So where does sorry, quick question. I know I seen Anna's hands up, but is it still with the MCC that the marketing budget is going to come from?
So there was a decision in the Intersect Steering Committee, internal operational meeting, that is, the ISC, that actually, and this is where the chairs of each of the committees sit as well. So there was a heated debate there as to what to do with the marketing. So the decision was that growth and marketing will now spin off and be a separate committee. And Jack will be the secretary of that. So that will spin off. We will represent that under the marketing bucket. And Jack is just working through a bit more detail as to what the budget would be. But there's a lot of work to get that committee, A, up and running, and B, some confidence in the money. So because we're raising each of the buckets separately, so we may take the decision to delay the marketing budget by a few weeks to allow the newly formed marketing committee to A, vote themselves in, as it were, to make sure they're okay, maybe even take some external voting if they so choose to from community members, i.e. the ISC or other voted on members to vote themselves in, if you kind of get my drift there. But give them more time to align what they would like to achieve in 2025 for the betterment of the community.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll let others go.
Thank you, Kit. Appreciate you. All right. I believe, Nana, you were up next, and then Max.
Thank you very much, Lloyd. Thank you very much, Lawrence, for the information you guys are giving out here. You mentioned earlier on that a part of the budget is going to be for, basically going to cater for Intersect operations, right?
Right.
And yeah, absolutely. So I'm wondering what is going to happen to the annual subscription fee that members pay to be a part of Intersect? Does it have any effect?
Great question, actually. So this has been the dilemma we at Intersect have had for a while. So obviously Intersect has staff and we have an operational cost. And I'm just closing out 2024 and we'll publish that as hopefully by March. So we have our cost to cover. Let's say it's around about the $8.5 million. So we need to recoup those costs. We can recoup those costs in a number of different ways. One is from the 5% from suppliers who deliver to the Cardano Development Holdings, and that's a delivery assurance fee. So that covers administration, chasing for milestones, legal, finance, etc. And we also receive some money from membership. However, membership fees are quite low, and we're very keen, and the board is also in approval of this, that we should keep membership realistic. And we should not increase it. So, for example, I don't know if you've heard of the McDonald's scale or the Big Mac scale. So the Big Mac scale is a term, an economical term used for the cost of a Big Mac varies in every country, but fundamentally it's the same. So we don't overcharge, i.e. at the moment we're $10. Great, for $10 in the UK is circa £10, $10, great. But when we start to other countries, that cost goes up. So we need to modify that as we move into this year for membership. So it is deliberately low. We are working on how we can make that change for the coming year, and even we have to have a fee of some form because we are an MBO. That's the one restriction we have. But there may be ways in which, smart ways, for example, we could offer competition supports, sponsorship sort of things. So one thing's being discussed, and by the way, I know this is being recorded, but we're talking about if, for example, people are able to do work for us as a company, that could go towards your membership subscription. So you don't have to pay it, but you're providing the community with a service by doing things like reviewing our documents, by reviewing translations and things like that. So there are other ways we're talking about it. So yes, operational costs have to be covered from the Cardano Development Holdings and the Treasury. B is, well, I want to make sure everyone is aware that any money that comes to Intersect is for our operational, but we are not for profit corporate. So any money we have left goes to the membership and should be spent on the membership, be that stipendings, be those events, etc. And we have to show value for money still.
Okay, that is a brilliant delivery. So I mean, a quick follow-up. Does that mean that, for instance, that debt that we are talking about, that operational cost that is there now that has to be paid, once it is all covered up, right? Does members stop paying fees, or how is it going to be like?
Well, we as a member under Wyoming law, you have to be in part of a members-based organisation. A fee has to be incurred, so you have to pay. I think what we need to do is be smart on enabling people to pay it through either work or other means, and that's the bit we're looking at. So as a member, you'll pay a fee, and that's really only. I think at the moment our fees are only in the tune of about 200,000. So it's quite small as when we think of our overall cost. But to us, that's we don't really want to increase it to make it so people can't be a member. We need members because you're the ones that have got all these skill sets. When we can only act upon membership direction. So we have to be smart. We have to keep it low and keep engagement high.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Dan. I appreciate it. All right, I got Max and John, and I'm conscious of time, guys. We have about 10 minutes left in today's session. So, but we haven't heard from Max at all yet. So let's get Max's question out of the way, and then we'll see if we have room for you, John, to get one more in. Okay? Yes, a tiny one. Great. Go ahead, Max.
Thanks for the recognition there, Lloyd. Yeah, I just have a quick question on the budgetary time as it's been set. So 73 epochs. And I remember we had brief chats about it with Ken Eric also, where we're looking at the definition for the, let's say, the limit and the guardrail. Can that also be a rolling window? So how does that look from an operational perspective? How are you guys thinking of approaching it? Because it seems to me that if it's a hard limit, a lot of the activity will have to take place just before this endpoint, let's say. Whereas if it's a rolling window, it also would be conducive to, these different buckets, as you mentioned, having different priorities while you make your way through all the buckets, allowing for more people to apply at any time of the year, letting that process be a bit more dynamic. So question being, is rolling window going to be the way to read this 73 epoch time limit?
Yeah, so the wording we're proposing for the net change limit is what I call a rolling net change limit. So it's 350 per year, and until another net change limit is agreed. So consequently, it's 350 for this year. So I think the wording that we've agreed on is January to December. I mean, we have to pick a period. And then, in the absence of any other net change limit approved, this net change limit would remain in situ. So consequently, that keeps every year thereafter at 350. Now, we kind of did that on the assumption that we didn't want to have 350 this year, and then let's say everyone raises it for next year and there's no limits. How do we deal with them? So the idea being is it's there. Now I know some people, so it's there, it will roll forward 350 every year. If we see that, if the D-reps in the community feels that we need to increase that, they can raise another net change limit. And I would strongly recommend that net change limit have a similar wording to keep that then rolling until the next one comes in. So there's always a limit in future years.
Okay.
Now, what we're trying to do, so it's worth noting when we start multi-years, because we're starting in June, there is conversations now internally because we're producing a year's budget. Obviously, do we then shift our budget from June to June? So June this year to June next year, i.e. go through multiple years. Personally, I think that adds to the confusion, and my preference is we drill the committees into a view of 6 months, and then work on our process for next year. But there is conversations underfoot as how would we manage and track a multi-year budget of this magnitude. So if we are asking for circa 200 million, in the banking world and where I was doing the budgets before, it was very much a case that I would want to have finite detail and evidence of roughly when you're going to spend these money because it's in multi-year budgets. So you can have an accruals process over a Christmas, but that's very difficult to manage and it becomes more financial administration. So we're trying to deliberately get this year's one just to cover that 6-month period, and whilst we're working on the next year's budget. And then hopefully we'll start to get that engine rolling and it'll be a lot easier and a lot quicker, I hope.
Yeah. And I'll add to that like Lawrence had said earlier, the idea of trying to get a good cycle going by enforcing, a calendar year net change limit, that does help make that happen, right? It really does. It gives everybody a good, like, this money, if we're going to spend money in 2026, it has to be within this amount. So let's get our budgets together at the end of 25 to all of us, whoever in Cardano is going to do it, and put it out. And then probably, if we're good stewards, we leave something behind in case something comes up in 26 that needs to be addressed. And that's the approach. And of course, here's the other side of that. We could always add to the net change limit. Oh gosh, this is so important that we don't have any more room. D-reps can say, you know what? Yeah, it's important. Let's spend it. But remember, that's the D-reps. That would be their thing. They'd say, yeah, we think that's more important. So we will change the net change limit, maybe even to one time. Like, just for this year, we're going to add 50 million to the net change limit. Okay, fine. That's the D-reps decision. Right. So there is really a pretty good bit of brilliance in this design, so where we can react if we need to.
Yeah, look, we're going to have the quarterly reviews, aren't we, as well? So it's part of our transparency commitment to the community. So we'll be showing everyone what we're spending it on, and obviously we're not going to be spending on silly things, and we'll be showing and justifying it and receiving feedback on a quarterly basis from the DREP and community, to be fair, about everything that we're doing. So should there be any concerns, or should there be a request, and this is being discussed as well from our business operations team, operational services team, I think it's now called, which is very much a case of, well, I would like to sign a contract that is multi-year, so it will go into next year. Can we sign that, and do we have commitment to do that? And that's where the D-reps will come in.
Awesome. Is that good for you, Max?
Yeah, thanks. Is there a specific place to look for, just in a bit more detailed, that I can read? So I'm just curious about this time aspect, especially. Like, that's you mentioned the rolling windows in the language, but how is that rolling window calculated? What's the time stamping? How, I'm just
January
curious.
1st to December 31st is the way it's literally written out as the calendar year, January 1st to December 31st.
Yeah, Lloyd, let's take the actions. We now know we have this proposal feature for a info action in the Gov tool. And maybe it's us for now to actually take this wording and put it in there prior to being raised, so people like Max can see it and read it.
Let's do it. We can do it today.
Oh, yeah, okay. Bring the action.
I'll take a look at the system, see if we can get it done. So we'll at least do it. We'll just at least go through it today and see if we can figure it out. And if we can, we'll get it raised. And if not, we'll go to Ryan and get his help.
I was going to say, yeah.
Okay.
Wait, are you saying
so
you want to get the net change limit as a governance as an info action in today?
So not the info action, it would be the proposal forum in GovTool, just the proposal forum. We'll have to wait a little bit longer to turn it as an info action, but yeah, we could get the language into the proposal forum. So
yeah, we wasn't aware. The proposal forum is the prelude to raising an info action, so you can write it, check it, make sure it works, and then get sentiment on it. We wasn't aware of the feature coming out, so it's quite new to us. It's like, okay, yeah, we could have used this ages ago. And actually, the net change is probably the first time we'll use it. So we're just ramping up to, is the system prepared for us?
There you go. So we'll see what we can do next day or so to get that done. I'll take a look at it myself today, and if we can't figure it out, we'll get Ryan's help. I'm sure Ryan knows exactly how to do it.
He's actually busy writing my transparency financial reporting system for me.
Oh, there you go. See that. That is a very good task for Ryan to be on. All right, John, we got 2 minutes left, John. So I'll give you. You said tiny, so you said a short question. So I'm going to let you go ahead, man.
Yeah, it was. It was just about the previous thing. I was looking the other day and I couldn't find on the Intersect knowledge base an up-to-date number of how many Intersect members there are.
Circa 2,000. It should be on the MCC.
Yeah, I mean,
if it's not there, I don't know. If it's not on that website and you've looked, that's a definite ping to Nick.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm also, although listening, I'm also confused about the multi-year thing. And like, if somebody had a really important project and they put in their own budget for like some important project that was like, say, 20 million and it's under the net change limit, it doesn't disrupt anything else, but they can get that allocation all in 1 year. And what they can technically then withdraw the whole thing in that year, but then pay it out over multiple years, and then they never have to go back for a budget.
Well, so that kind of blends into a number of things if I've understood the example, John. So if, as it stands at the moment, anyone can raise a budget check, you can ask for your total amount in one lump sum, yes.
Yeah.
But the Constitution also states that you should recommend using things like smart contracts, etc. So as part of your budget ask, if, for example, you're asking for 20 million and it's going to be delivered in 3 years, let's say, but you only have a payment treasury request for one amount, one could assume that the DREX would reject that on the basis that you actually don't need all the money this year. You need it spread over. So your smart contract, or one could assume that the DREX would reject it and say, go and change your smart contract. So how much do you need this year, next year, and the year after? So you then have a smaller chunks in each year. And then the smart contract will be the leverage that pays you. So, but again, that's some of the lower level detail operationally how this is going to work that the Constitution doesn't manage.
I'm a bit confused, but you would get the whole thing approved in one vote.
Well, you would get your info action approved in one vote, your info action, but then you how you ran your treasury withdrawals would be what they would have to do. So you could go either, like Lawrence was saying, you do a smart contract. You could propose a smart contract that would move the funds, or that it would take a treasury withdrawal into the smart contract this year, next year, and the year after, right? So you can propose all that in your info action, but as to Lawrence's point, if you don't say something that the DREPs like, they're probably going to reject it. So if you need 3 years of funding, then and it's 20 million total, well, then that would be a third in 3 different net change limits that it would be evaluated against, and that's where it would be. So we will have to have the concept of looking at the future net change limits and say we're making a consideration against a future bucket of money that's going to be available. So that is part of the thought process that we'll have to go through the DREPs and the CC. We've talked about how to track this. We don't have a tool yet, but we're talking about what a tool would look like to track that, to make it easy for the DREPs and the CC to say, well, if we approve this, then 26's net change limit will, instead of it really effectively being 350, it'd really effectively be 330, or whatever. If it's 20 million a year, you see what I'm saying? It would effectively be, here's what's left in those future net change limit years, right? So that's something we have to talk about, and we have to try to build some tooling around.
Okay,
Lloyd, I'm sorry, John, on this point, but it's kind of to me, I think it's kind of has to be clear, right? If we're saying it's a smart contract, right? A smart contract, the info action is going to be approved all at once, but then the smart contract deploys the funds more like a milestone, right? Milestone of achievement over a year. Then how do we measure that this particular person, how do we ensure that this particular person has achieved, or he has passed that particular milestone before he receives the second funding for that milestone? That is a problem there.
I totally agree with you, and that is something that we've definitely had some pretty long and in-depth conversations between Lawrence and I on about what that really looks like. It could be some sort of a set of governance keys that could have a vote that could override it, or there's a number of ways we could work on that. But this is why Intersect exists as an administrator, right? We think that if people come to Intersect, bring their proposal with their milestones forward, and subject themselves to the approval of the committee that is most suited to their work, well, that takes that problem out of the loop, right? The DREPs will be able to see that would happen, and they would be able to see that we're holding them to account. So that's a very interesting part of it. And yes, Ken, there are other options beyond that, but at least for now, the best option we have is the committee level oversight. But yeah, there are definitely other things we can build over time, and let's continue to talk about it. I saw a question about audit, and there's an audit working group forming right now that is underway. One of the Intersect one of the budget committee members has volunteered to chair that, and the beginning processes of that are happening now. But yes, there will absolutely be an auditing working group that will make recommendations on what auditors to use for our external audits. And then we also are working. Well, it's not formed yet, but another one we're going to form is a technology. The chair is actually Jose Velasquez for that working group. He's the volunteer to lead that working group, and then go ahead, Lawrence.
Yeah, just on that, just on Kit's point there, I think there's something just to be mindful of as well. That's we still got to spend time with the DREPs on this. So when budgets are raised, we've got to go through and work with the DREPs how they plan to manage the delivery assurance for budgets outside of Intersect, because Intersect has a delivery assurance process. We have an assurance and transparency mentor as an administrator, and we've defined what we believe an administrator is as part of our budget proposals and declaration. So that falls in our remit, and we take, as Intersect takes the accountability to support and ensure quality is being delivered from the community or from the suppliers. If you ask for a budget outside of that, I think that's where we've got to spend some more time and evolve the process with the DREPs, because who is going to be the administrator? Who will own and support the keys if it's a multi-sig, if it's a smart contract? Who else will own the keys? Is it just the person that raised it, thus they can withdraw it themselves without any worries, and it's only time bound? What if they don't deliver? How will they provide the auditing, and how will they then stop the smart contract? Who has the power to stop that smart contract? I think there's still a lot more questions yet to be asked about that piece outside of the Intersect budget. But I do know some companies that are people that are going to raise it with all of those in mind, and it's good luck to them. And we need to work with them to understand how they propose to do it, how we're proposing to do it, and make sure that the DREPs have got all the appropriate information to make the appropriate decision.
Yeah, and so just add to that, sorry, Lloyd. To just add to that, I think the Intersect is doing good job, but we want to make people comfortable enough so that they know that they can request for funds outside of the Intersect. That's really important, and that's why there's the next change limit, so that there's still enough funds out there for people to make a direct withdrawal from the treasury without Intersect. So that's why I'm really curious about that. But thank you so much for that explanation.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, guys, we are about 6 minutes over, so I do want to, honor everybody's day. I appreciate your time, your attention. Your attention is your most precious resource, and you guys shared it with us today. So thank you so much for doing that. We will be back. It's our Thursday evening time, East Coast, U.S. East Coast, and it will be our next session. We will continue to run these twice a week, and we've got 2 weekend sessions that I will put out as well as soon as possible. So thank you again for your time, your attention, and your great questions today. We really appreciate all of you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for your efforts. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.